Hold on. All right. Okay. And then we'll have this, we didn't have to record it another way. That when we do the live, it's automatically recording, right? Like we did last time, Tom? Okay, cool. All right. So we will start in 5, 4, 3. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome, Paul Metzheiser, to the Morning Toast. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing, Bill?
Doing pretty good. Good to see you. I forgot to ask you as we're getting ready today where you're at. I have no idea. I know you're in your office, but what part of the world are you in?
Yeah, we're just outside of Tampa, Florida.
Very cool. Okay, got it. So hence the palm tree in the background. Now I get it. You're tying it all together. Cool. All right. So everybody, real quick introduction. So here's a little about Paul. Paul is the managing partner for TAMCO. TAMCO, as I know many of you know, is an as-a-service provider for technology solutions. Paul has a technology background himself, and he's been with the firm since 1996. He has a degree in marketing from the University of Tampa, and he's involved like everywhere you can think of in the AV industry and the integration industry or cottage industry. So it's kind of hard to know where everything is. But Paul knows where everything is. You've obviously been at this a long time. You're highly respected. And I appreciate you coming on today. We've been talking for a while about hardware as a service, technology as a service. And the education that I've got when I met you has been so much more than I've got on my own over a huge extended period of time. So I really appreciate you joining.
No, thanks for having me, Bill. I'm excited to talk about it. Always excited to talk about it. And like you said, it is a cottage industry, and it's great to have, folks like you to do, podcasts like this, and hopefully we can enlighten some more and move this subscription consumption model along.
There you go. Well, I tell you, if I can, I'd love to find a way that we accomplish two things. One is the perspective from the integration channel, from the supply side. I can talk pretty good about the challenges and maybe some of the misconceptions and where, how far we have to go there. But I also want to touch on the customer perspective. Let's make sure that we spend some time understanding their ecosystem and why they should understand more about what benefits come with as a service as a whole. So if we can do both of those, I think we nailed it.
Perfect. I agree. That's cool. You hit the mark right there.
All right. So to start, and forgive me if this is a sort of a lame way to kick it off, but as I think of as a service, I think of the many years that I was out and about selling technology, and I would stumble upon the fax machine and the copy machine, and those were never purchased. In fact, there's rarely a sale made in the traditional sense for those things. Those were always leased, or there was an as a service sort of model, and they might have called it something else. Am I right about that?
Yeah, no, you are. And even, a termed rental by its definition was an as a service. We just didn't call it that. So the vernacular was really kind of born about 10 years ago and has evolved over time. But that's a very good way to look at it. The copier and the facsimile, never owned.
And just, painting a broad brushstroke here, I was always confused as to, I understood the benefits of why you'd lease something. And I know we're not talking about leasing here, but we're like a second cousin to that. Sure. And I'd always have a difficult time figuring out why it was okay for that fax and copier, but it was not okay for the AV stuff that we provided. And there was a time when AV was on its own planet. And then we merged with IT many, many years ago. And now all of a sudden IT owned both of those products, both the copier and the projector or display. But yet they were purchased differently and managed differently. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with how AV has evolved. And like you said, the integration with IT. And you look at, what sits behind an AV solution, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to own it. But that's the way we've bought and sold for the past 20 or 30 years. I wish I had the answer of why a copier and a facsimile performed and it was kind of known to buy and sell that way, and why we don't do that with AV, although that's what we're starting to see. I'm sorry.
I said, please don't say it's because they're smarter than we are. You'll hurt my feelings beyond measure. But
no. I don't know if anybody can really answer that question, although it's ingrained. It's ingrained. Nobody owns a copier.
Yep. But it is interesting that that exists, and those two worlds couldn't be different, and how they're owned. Let's talk about the pain points a little bit before we dig into the solution. I know what the pain points are on my side of the fence. But first, let's start with the customer side. The customer pain point is that when they purchase a piece of hardware and they write that down on their books, they're often amortizing that purchase over an extended period of time, if it's a CapEx, right?
Right.
And the problem is the ownership of that item typically always outlasts the life of the product, and certainly the warranty of the product. Some products last longer than others. But I think from the customer standpoint, they've always struggled as to how to buy it and how to write it down properly.
Right.
And we've got a hot mess of things to write down. A display piece of hardware is going to last more than a control system, or differently, I should say. Some products have a 3-year warranty. Some products have a 5-year warranty. Some products have a 1-year warranty. Some products have consumables, and there's some perishable and components to what we do. So I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but what am I missing on the pain side on the customer end?
Yeah, I think it's education and awareness. And it's mainly because that's the way we've trained the customer to procure, is really cash. I wish, we could say that they had other options that the integrator community has thrown out to them, like you mentioned, lease. But really, that's absent in our space. And so I just think there's education. And if you really look at a bill of materials today, Bill, it's mostly non-recoverable cost and error. And combined with the fact that technology is moving at a rapid pace, there are far greater uses for that capital. And,
That's right.
And so I think that, combined with the fact that all of the customers today have bought in an as-a-service model in some way, shape, or form, not necessarily in AV, probably hardly in AV. But the question is, how does that move into? And if you look at that, like I said, that bill of materials, is it essential use? Yes. But is it revenue generating? No. Are there more non-recoverable costs? Yes. And is technology moving at a rapid pace? So there's a very compelling reason why customers should today at least explore this option for flexibility and peace of mind and all that stuff. But they haven't really had that opportunity to even make that decision in the past 5-10 years.
That's right. We've bumbled it collectively. We've bumbled it. In our industry and in maybe our approach. And I think the customer has a piece in that too. Let's talk about the integrator challenge for a moment. When we finally decide that we're going to give a good college try at selling it this way, and we see the benefits as to why to do it, we struggle with a number of things. I think we are trained inherently to get the right people in the room that are going to make decisions about the technology early on. And I think if we overlook, or let me rephrase that, we have overlooked getting the people in the room, I believe, that truly need to be there if you're doing an as-a-service program. And at the very 9th hour, when you think you have all the boxes checked and everybody thinks it's a wonderful idea, there's somebody that comes along and just rains on the parade. And just spoils the whole deal. And it's the person you probably shouldn't have in the meeting to begin with. A, who is that person? And B, how should that engagement look?
Yeah. And I mean, just in sales, we always, it seems like, focus on conveying to the customer what to buy and give very little time at the beginning or the middle of how to buy. So if we combine those two in the positioning, and in an ideal manner, you'd love to have somebody financially. And sometimes we as salespeople don't want to go down that path because that's not our area of expertise. Our area of expertise is the technical and the application, and maybe that buyer. So it really comes down to comfort. But to answer your question, in a perfect world, you'd love to have both. Sometimes they will gatekeep and they will block and they will keep the financial people out of it. And we understand that. And that's why in as a service, if you kind of pull the value and what it's solving and from the flexibility and the control and just being able to go in and out of technology over the next 3 or 4 years, you don't really have to necessarily go down a financial path. And that's, I think, the perception of it is financing, and therefore I have to have that person. Now, to your point though, the technical buyer should be informed of the things that I just outlined, that it's moving at a rapid pace, that
Right.
there's so much non-recoverable, and to make that recommendation to the financial person. Look, I know we typically pay cash, but there might be a better way,
Right.
and let's have that conversation. And the integrator loses nothing other than
Right.
they have credibility, they're differentiating, and they're really looking at that from the customer's perspective as a trusted advisor.
Well,
And
and that's the piece that's easy to land on, Paul. So you can instantly say that, all right, so we've solved both of the problems that we've identified. One, the ownership problem. How do I write this down? Even though I'm paying cash for it today, how does the ownership and life of that product work? Because the warranty is one thing and the ownership time is another. You've just taken that problem away. If you
well,
have an as a service model, forget about your warranty. We're always going to have something there. It's going to be new when it needs to be. And that's that.
yeah, and that's unfortunately, I think that's a weakness for salespeople. They lean on the warranty. The warranty is really a way for manufacturers to kind of me too,
Mhm.
and to guarantee to feel good behind it. But you really can kind of put that to the side and
Yeah.
focus on the value from that standpoint. I will mention real quick about that book and tax treatment and those types of reasons for customers to make a decision.
Mhm.
That with the as a service kind of goes by the wayside. It even goes more by the wayside with some of the new treatment that's going on in the financial world,
Right.
where those are almost becoming equal. So if you look at our website, for example, and what we do with partners is we remove that vernacular of OpEx and book
Yeah.
treatment and depreciation. It's the service, and here's
Right.
here's the service, and within that service, here's the value, and here's what it could mean to you.
Right. Well, so what do we do about the situation? We have a couple of worlds sort of intersecting here. We've got as a service, and the good news is everybody's talking about it. Even the customers that claim they don't want it, say they want it, at least early on, right? Or I should qualify that. The customers that said they didn't want to do it the other way, we were trying for years to do a lease, and that's not what we're talking about, but it's close. Those folks are now interested in as a service. But how do we bridge the gap between the fact that they oftentimes today have a lot of the technical resources that we have in our building, including programming, engineering, installers. Those folks now work for the customer sometimes too, especially an enterprise customer. So a lot of those technical chops are there. They rely on us to do like warranty, RMA, sort of manufacturer-based things that are required. But they're trying to solve their ecosystem problem by having those resources, which that's a whole nother podcast. I think might have failed there too. But pulling back for a second, does that change any of the as a service method when whether we have technical resources at their end or at our end?
Yeah, it might diminish what's in that as a service offering or value that the integrator can provide, whether it's
Right.
full SLAs or concierge service or proactive visits and things of that nature. But it doesn't change the way the customer should or could procure. And
Right.
it comes down to ownership. So just because you have your own employees and resources and skilled people there doesn't necessarily mean it makes sense to own it. And
Right.
that's the real departure there, is like ownership versus usage versus a service.
So if we don't technically own it as a customer, we don't have to balance it. We don't have to show it on the balance sheet, right?
Nope.
We just have to have this cost that hits the books every month.
Yes.
And it does not have to be a huge cost. Well, certainly everything's relative. It doesn't have to be as much as the cost as the actual hardware plus the install. You can spread that out over a period of time and then add the other things to it to support it properly. And as you said, the moment you start talking about model numbers and about actual line items in the deal, instead of what are we solving daily, what meetings are we saving, what solutions are we providing, and how is this program running? We can keep us in that space. We all win because that's truly what we want to supply on the integrator side too.
Right. And part of that, Bill, is the integrator having a conversation or discussion that might be traditionally uncomfortable. And
Right.
there's no reason not to talk about the amount of money that manufacturers are spending in R&D to displace what I'm going to sell you today and put you in a more competitive situation to have greater applications and efficiencies in 2 or 3 years. That's
Right.
okay, but we never want to talk about that. And that's
Right.
really what's going on. It's that it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be displaced, but it can be displaced. And
That's
to
right.
put the customer in the situation where they're in control and they're making the decisions when they want to pivot in and out of those life cycles, that's powerful. And when you do have a cash, it makes it more difficult to do. They got to walk down the hall. Let's appropriate the budget. And that's kind of the old way of thinking. And the subscription consumption model has really opened up that door to put them in a situation and use it for its useful life. And
That's right.
you make the decision. So again, going back to, that's a conversation we really haven't had. We don't want to say, hey, what I sell to you, there's something else coming out in 2 or 3 years. But that's just the reality of it. It doesn't mean it won't be it work, but those are the conversations we can help you
kind of have. So you're tripping into an area that I think we just need to rip the Band-Aid off. Let's talk about the mistakes that are made, and nobody intends to. I get that. Like, salesperson doesn't wake up one day and say, "How can I screw this deal up?" But what mistakes are made that you can prevent them from making themselves, because we've all made them? What can we save for them when trying to sell programs like this?
Yeah, the biggest thing is, when sales reps play judge and jury on where and when it's going to work. And again, there's nobody in our history of a relationship with a partner that has lost a sale by going down this path and making a recommendation.
That's right.
To play judge and jury on where and if it's going to work, that's the first mistake. The second is, they've got billions of dollars. They've got more money than they don't need it. It's more of a financing type of thing. Well, there's a reason they have so much money. They've made very good business decisions.
I found that there's a correlation there.
Yeah. And it comes down to opportunity. It's like, okay, where is the best use? Let's say there's a $250,000 AV solution across the board, across the corporation. Where that's after tax dollars.
Right.
Could I use that to hire employees or get a return?
That's right.
Or not? Because we know the day after they are installed, they're worth maybe 30-40%. There's some equipment and everything else is gone. So there's a really good discussion you can have with the CFO. So those are two mistakes of kind of playing stereotyping where and when and if it'll work for what customer.
So, and I think we might have missed something here, just cart and horse like, and that is, why should a sales rep even do as a service? You and I know that deploying a program like this doesn't just solve the technology, problem. It solves a massive finance challenge on our end. How many people in the last 2.5 years have had a customer you're working with go out of business? Right here, and more than one. And thank God that's behind us. But one of them really stuck us for a lot of money. And I wonder how that may have looked differently if we had a different program in place. I can tell you, I think that we would have probably been paid well in advance of what ended up happening, which cost us yearly. So an as a service program is really healthy for the salesperson, for the company that they work for, and also for the customer. But they need to know that there's an incentive and there's a reason why to do it. So that they just don't want to say, well, it's a nuisance because I have to add more steps to my sale. Well, you get something for that. Cash in the door quicker on this end. How does that all work in a service model?
Yeah, it starts really with the principal or the leadership recognizing what an as a service can do beyond being embraced and correlating to this subscription consumption model in other sectors. It really starts with building RMR. And most folks in the integrators in our space, Bill, they're securing multi-year maintenance maybe 1 out of 10 times at the point of sale. And what an as a service does, it allows you to bundle that in with every sale. Number one, you can increase the revenue on that sale. So it's not just the box sale, the solution sale, but you have multi-year maintenance for years 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you've increased.
Now wait a minute, pause there for a second. So that's another thing every one of us are trying to do. As an integration company, we are trying to get more people onto the support program because we can look after them better, and we have a more stable customer. Stable customer means happy customer, means more business from the customer. It solves that problem too.
It solves that problem. Not only, again, does it increase your revenue, it makes it stickier, but it has to obviously be good for the customer. We'll get to that too. But you now have contracted customers for 5 years, not just, hey, we sold it, we know they're going to call us because we're going to do a good job. But this builds into that recurring revenue. This builds into that higher multiple for integrator, higher valuation. Whether that organization wants to sell or just have more leverage to buy out other companies or get loans, it's just a more sound business model.
Healthier thing to do. Let me ask you this. Is there a more of a reasonable chance that an integrator will do another contract after that 5 years with that customer than it would be if there were no SaaS model or hardware as a service model in place and you just had to resell everything? Now they have to go back out to bid and,
Statistically, yes, Bill. And part of that is not only the stickiness in the multi-year maintenance, but with ours and others, there's obsolescence protection that they have to go back through the originating partner. So if you, the integrator, are doing your job and standing behind your promise of value and your SLAs, there's no reason why that customer should not enjoy the life cycles with you for the next 10, 20 years. Right. And so that's the nice thing. Going back to your, the question about the salesperson, again, it starts with the leadership wanting RMR. If then the salesperson is securing that RMR, they should be paid for that too. So we always encourage, make sure the compensation's there. And then it's a cultural shift. It's more of the integrator leadership saying, hey, we're going to pivot. We're going to focus more on services. And oh, by the way, here's that equipment and the solutions, and flipping the script. And then it starts, leadership goes down to the salesperson. And so there's a financial reward to the salesperson. And then there's the ability to differentiate and disrupt the competition and lead and have them follow. And those are kind of the things that are, I think, exciting.
So leadership has to be completely bought in on it for it to even, have a chance of working. But also the sales department needs to be aligned with the benefit that comes from the as a service model. And by putting your money where your mouth is, if it truly is better business, reward the sales team for getting it there. I'm going to speak for, my competition, the other companies in our industry. We all have somewhat different comp plans, but they're mostly rooted in gross profit, what you deliver on the job. Most also are rooted in when we get cash in, cash goes out, and different little idiosyncrasies of how those are paid. But by and large, they're those two things. But I say that to say that in a as a service model, the money and the transaction on our end of the equation is instant. It's like when it's signed, it's done. There's no waiting for the punch list item to be done. There's no waiting for this last little bit of hardware to show up that's back ordered these days, God knows how long. There's no once you have substantial use of a system and you've triggered your warranties to start, you're paid and signed and you're good to go. So there truly is an incentive there on our end of the equation.
Absolutely. And organizations like ours, we will pay for the solution to the integrator up front and then remit the multi-year maintenance over time, hence building the recurring revenue. The challenge and the opportunity is that in a cash scenario, it just hasn't been done successfully. And by the way, that's all sectors. That's AV, that's security, that's business phone systems, all of them.
Well, help me with this. It's either a myth or a reality, but I'm going to tell you what my suspicion is. I believe there's two kinds of integration companies out there, and you can log into everybody's website, and we're all, boasting about how wonderful our as a service program is because we know it's a soundbite. But I have a feeling you fall into one of two categories. You either have one or two as a service customers in your background, and you're hoping that you can catch up by the time you're messaging that you have this wonderful program, or you'll have zero customers you still do, but you're also messaging that you do it. I don't think anybody's really nailing this. There's very few people that have this figured out, which is why it's so wonderful that you've come around. But correct my suspicion first. Am I off on that at all?
No, you're right. We call that marketing vapor. Yeah, they want to check a box to act like they have it. So you're spot on.
Got it. Okay, well that's a relief then. So guess what, everybody? Nobody's doing it better. So why not take advantage of somebody that can help us get it right. So let's talk about that for a little bit. If we go back years from here and discover what those challenges were to do just any kind of alternate purchasing method, we all struck out at the very end of the process. And let's talk about some of those tactics. We bring somebody in at the last minute, or maybe we say, well, what if we have a customer we think might be the customer that would fit the profile we think would do something like this? And then, Paul, we'll call you when we get that customer. And we're thinking, oh, maybe a couple weeks, we'll get one on the line and we'll give you a call. Well, tell me how that's wrong.
Yeah, that's, to simplify it, that would be ready, fire, aim. And unfortunately, just not successful for anyone. And we become noise to each other. And it really starts at the very beginning. Unfortunately, salespeople and even leadership, we kind of resist change. So It's flipping the script and the mindset from the very beginning. So it goes back to positioning, finding the pain points, not the Hail Mary because they haven't signed. Let's call throwing an as a service at them. It becomes part of the strategic offering. And we always say, Bill, there's one thing to have it, and there's another thing to really, leverage it and have the ability to make a pivot. So there are two different things. There's the execution of it versus the have it on a website. And I can tell you, just looking at a lot of the websites throughout the industry, who's checked a box and who's really trying to effectively make change and make the pivot.
That's right. Well, I mean, ideally, this is when we finally wanted to get our support program in motion. You have to decide not to do the support at the proposal level. You don't decide when to do it. You decide when not to. And so literally the options reversed. And till we get there, I think and that's leadership being completely bought in, from it. But I still think there's a couple more perceptions to kill here. Is there a customer that's too big, or is there a customer that's too small? Like, where's the sweet spot for as a service?
Yeah, that's another misperception. And I'm glad you asked that, because there really isn't. The principles of the program and the principles of the concept and the model apply to large banks, multi-million-dollar banks, and small organizations. It really doesn't matter. That's where it kind of goes back to that playing judge and jury. And we've proven that, over our history. Once we get an opportunity, sure, the bigger one's a little bit more complex, especially with today's supply chain and the timing. Yes, but the principles absolutely align.
Got it. That's good. I'm glad we're getting to this. And you said earlier, I think, you're not aware of any deal out there ever that has been crushed by offering an as a service. Because if they say no to that, they're saying yes to a purchase. So you don't really have nothing to lose for attempting.
We say that all the time. There's absolutely nothing to lose. There's only things to gain. Oh my goodness. What if they say yes, you have multi-year maintenance and you have a stickier customer and all those things. Or they come back and just say, Paul, it makes sense. Our procurement processes are so legacy. I would have to undo so many things right now. Let's work on it next time. And we're just going to pay cash. That's the worst thing that can happen.
That's right. Yeah. And so we'll take cash too. That spends the same. Right?
That's what you're doing today. Yeah,
exactly. There's also, I think too, I don't know how often this happens, but there's got to be an opportunity for this is, what about the deal that's being spot checked? Well, we don't know how much it's going to cost to renovate the boardroom. Gosh, we just spent all this time making all these huddle spaces, which force people together. Now we got to go back to these big rooms again to spread people out. I'm just throwing that out there. But no, we don't have 200,000 this year. We didn't know it was going to cost that much. So let's push that till next year. What if you quoted something and you proposed something this year that somebody said no to? You could potentially go back to that customer very easily. Yeah. You didn't have 200,000, but do you have 25,000 a month to pay us to do everything you wanted to do? And you just look at a different ownership model and do an as a service program instead.
Yeah, it just, it opens up the opportunity for any integrator to address a situation like that. If in fact, they go down that path, or they know they can go back later on, but that's the right way. You're thinking the right way. And it just, it basically takes the objection away from the customer. I understand you don't have the budget. Actually, if you had the budget, I'd still recommend this, but let's talk more.
So we spent a lot of time talking about the why. Um, let's talk about the what now. So we're interested, we're ready to go. We've got our leadership team on board. We have our sales team that, they will definitely get it. We just have to do some training and things. Do you train us up as an organization and then just release us to the hounds and hope we get it right? Or are you available to help when we have a potential project? And how would you like to see that happening? Or how does it happen successfully in other places?
Yeah, no, the thought to roll it out and to have the integrators just kind of do it on their own, that's not going to be successful. They're going to need a blueprint. They're going to need support. We'd recommend integrate an organization like ours into, as part of your team. And we can train, we can orient, but the more they hear, the more they see with the customer and the interaction, the easier it is. But that's also, training is a big part of it. And the integration of the as a service organization and the integrator. But it also goes down to, again, marketing, the proposal. That's a really big part because of the vernacular and the difference of ownership versus non-ownership. Those little things, the compensation, we talked about it. And then again, it's just leadership, not only commitment, but inspection. And, the ability to make sure that they understand leading with service is only going to be good for the customer and going to be good for you. So it's that buy-in process.
That's one of the things I really liked when we started talking is we had to sort of fit this qualification before you had to almost interview us instead of the other way around. It was, are they going to be able to do the things necessary to make it successful? If the answer is yes, then I've got all the time in the world to spend working with them. But we're really not, life's too short to be in the tire kicking business all the time. That's what the last 20 years have been. So it's like, yeah, if you've got the gut and you're ready to make the investment in time and resources, and basically just people, then you've got time for them, which is I absolutely love.
Yeah. And that's it. And Billy, we've talked about it. It's, I know from an organizational standpoint, you have to make sure you've got the right people to make this pivot. And that's good or bad, there's some folks that have been doing it a certain way and might be a little bit more challenging to make the change or make the pivot. And those are all things that we need to size up. I think what's exciting is that for the first time in our company's history, for example, we are really starting to see the pull and the demand from customers. Now you don't want to wait for people to ask. It's a proactive, it's a strategy. It's not an off the shelf response kind of offering, but that's exciting. That's exciting because they've procured, like we've already talked about, and as a service in other sectors besides AV.
Well, that's why I love the fact that you have the background you do, because you're aware of the fact that as an integrator, we're usually skittish about inviting somebody with us to the table with our customer. It's not because we're just being bullheaded or we want to do all the talking. When we invite a manufacturer with us, they may have a product that's really performing high in one category. And I've worked for manufacturers. They may have 5 other products that you're trying to sell that nobody wants.
Right.
And then they take that opportunity when they're in front of your customer to like undo 5 or 6 things that you've already got behind you. Now they don't all do that, but it's happened to all of us more than once. And so that skittishness is there for that reason. But there really isn't a reason to have any fuss over bringing you to the table. Like you've never changed somebody's deal, right? You've never changed the construct of their approach. You're only there to help finance and appropriate the right sort of buying mechanism for them to get the thing.
Yeah, I wish we could share that more with folks. And part of it is it's just typical. They don't know you, trust, rapport, and so forth. But what you just categorized is exactly right. We're not going to affect your company story. We're not going to affect your service. We're not going to affect your technological design that you've put together. It's simply what we believe a better way for the customer to absorb this with greater flexibility, greater control than what existed today. And that's cash. Yep. So, and again, let's say we go through that whole process together. And at the end of the day, they just say, you know what, Bill, we get it, we see it, but we're just going to pay cash. It's appropriated. It's just too much work to uncover or too many layers to do that. and that's okay. But you'll get wins along the way. And you got to think about it. It's not that prevalent today, so you're disrupting the competition.
Yep, exactly. Well, and then that's the key. And maybe a good place to sort of close out is, are we going to continue to pretend that we're all doing it? And are we going to keep talking about it? Or are we really going to dig in and jump? I'd like to make sure that we do the latter. And we're preparing our organization right now to do just that. And I think in doing so, we will nail it. And I don't know that we'd want to do it with anyone else as well. So I appreciate all the time and all the support. And everything you're doing for us, for the industry, and also for PSNI, the group, the alliance that we have worldwide. You've been right there. Every time I turn around, there's Paul. You're like the what's the movie where it was Forrest Gump and by no disrespect, but you're just like seem to be at every pivotal moment in the history of AV. There's Paul. He's right there.
Well, no, we're trying. And the PSNI, great example, just a great group, great alliance. And, again, I'm glad, we're all part of that, but they're giving us the opportunity, commercial integrator giving us the opportunity to share the logic, the relevance, and the opportunity. And we think it's just a perfect time. So we're really trying to do our part. And a lot of it is educational, like you do, to share with the community, with other integrators, best practices, what works, what doesn't work. So appreciate those comments, and hopefully we can help you and a lot of others.
Sounds good. Good place to end, Paul. Great to see you. Thanks for jumping on. And we'll do it again. Hopefully the next podcast we do, we're celebrating those successful projects in their rearview mirror and coming at this conversation from a different perspective. So thanks for joining. Have a great weekend and all the best to you.
Thanks, Bill. Really appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Take care. All right. So we'll cut that. I think we pretty much nailed everything. Anything we missed or left out that you want to insert somewhere? You want to redo a section?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot of it. I think, you know better than me how long these are before people kind of probably reach their attention spans. But no, I think, we hit the recurring revenue and integrator, customer. Yeah, we could talk about this for hours, but I think for the most part, we hit the pivotal key points there.
Yeah, they won't. If it blows up and gets buzz and gets attention, there'll be a handful more. But I could share the stats with you how they usually go. The thing is, like, if it's talked about, if it's thrown around there, there's a very small percentage that'll listen to the whole thing. But we would like to get more sophisticated and jump to some shorts and say, if you're talking about what are the challenges for the integrator addressing a customer, we can cut right to that. And that's a video. And then we can cut another one up and say, what are the customer objections, or what are the lessons learned from salespeople getting it wrong? We could there might be 3 or 4 little shorts that we can cut into, but we haven't done a whole lot. We've done it a few times, I think, Tommy, right? But we'll need to continue to get sophisticated as we go.
Awesome. Tommy, what are your thoughts? How'd we do?
I think it was a great show. You guys nailed it.
All right.
I can always tell if we nail it because Tommy will be over there in the background. Yeah, that's what they said right there. That was really good.
Good.
I see some nodding going on, which is great.
That's awesome. Well, Bill, I can do this anytime. So if you want to change, whatever, or tweak it or whatever it might be, let me know. And I really do appreciate the opportunity. Hopefully it's good for you, good for us. And, next week we can talk about the partnership and things you maybe want me to do with them, or next steps, whatever it might be. That one sheet that I sent over to you, actually both of those Word documents that's kind of in the incubator to be content pieces.
Right. So that's right. But I have those, by the way. I had the notes here. I went through a couple of these. By design, I didn't go through a lot of the stats yet because I don't want to go. I thought maybe we should just hover around the higher end of the topics. Otherwise, I knew we wouldn't get it all in.
No. I was just thinking of things that whatever I might be. But yeah, those two Word docs, they're actually going to be video voiceovers.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously as soon as we have those, but those are challenge the misperceptions and things are where,
That's right. Yeah, I pulled a few of those. But yeah, hopefully we got a pretty well-rounded start to the conversation about, why to do it. We addressed the how to do it. We addressed the challenge. We got right to maybe what holds integrators back typically. And then you nailed the big one, which is don't even expect to get traction on this unless like everybody's committed. And that's the one piece that you really resonated with us, that we got to get on board. So
yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to get this introduced Monday. I'll follow up with you, probably not Monday, but it'll be a couple days later. I'll let you know kind of where we're at, and we'll put a plan together what the next steps are.
Sounds good. Awesome. Cool. Well, hey, have a great weekend. I do appreciate it, and good luck to your father-in-law as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much, Paul. Take it easy.
Take care.
Bye now.